So, since it is October, Halloween is here. Happy Halloween! I wanted to kind of delve away from an actual diagnosis, and hysteria is something I'm sure that most people have heard before, at least the word, specifically in moments when you're having a bad day or you start yelling or crying uncontrollably. Well, what some people don't actually know is that hysteria used to be a medical diagnosis, both physically and psychologically. Hysteria can be dated all the way back to the ancient Greeks, who thought that a woman's uterus would actually dry up and travel around the woman's body in search of moisture. That is actually what they thought. The treatment and supposed cure for this was marriage and motherhood. After this, the Roman physician Galen, I probably didn't pronounce that right, thought hysteria was caused by sexual deprivation in particularly passionate women. Skip ahead a couple thousand years and we hit the 1600s. By now, America has been discovered and towns are popping up. Salem, Massachusetts is a pretty infamous place due to the Salem witch trials that took place there. From a Salem Puritan viewpoint, the world was like this. Their town properly feared and worshipped God. The world did as well. Except for the forest, so that was where the devil created evil. Abigail Williams and her cousin Ann Putnam accused older women of lower stature of being witches. There were a total of about 19 supposed witches that were found guilty and hanged, or killed, within the Salem witch trials. And there's thought to have been way more that were imprisoned and either released or died in prison. There are lots of theories about what caused the Salem witch trials, and no one is completely sure. The one that I've found most believable, this is personal opinion on what's most believable, is about mass hysteria. Reason it ties in. The definition of hysteria, according to dictionary.com, is exaggerated or uncontrollable emotion or excitement, especially among a group of people. In the context of the Salem witch trials, it's thought that Abigail and Anne's accusations set off a long line of others doing the same, along with their physical symptoms like the convulsions and the supposed possessions that they felt. Other girls were feeling the same thing, which could have been caused by hysteria. There are many different explanations of why people go along with hysteria. According to Sarah Akumus's, I can't pronounce it very well, but the link will be in the description, TED Talk on hysteria, people follow it mostly because it gives them a sense of purpose and it unites them. She used Turkey's protest against a park being built as an example. Everyone felt anxious, jumpy, excited, and just kind of went with what everyone else was doing. The protest, however, became something much bigger, something that the entire country was behind, and it was against the government. It united everyone. I mean, we're all looking for a purpose, and hysteria gave it to them. Personally, back to the Salem witch trials, I think Abigail and Anne were really just being kids. They got yelled at for something and tried to place the blame on someone else. I doubt they expected it to go as far as they did, but also knowing kids and teens, they were too scared to say, oh no, we were lying, because who would have believed them at that point? Moving on down our timeline, we hit the 1880s. Sigmund Freud, who I will probably make an entire video on, he was really something. He was a interesting man, said that the unconscious mind could cause physical symptoms when dealing with emotions or memories that are too stressful for the conscious mind to deal with. You can see this in people with PTSD and anxiety or depression. I've heard stories from therapists about how patients, when they were talking about something, about abuse that they had been through, they had marks show up on their neck, like it was a hand mark. There's something there to the theory, whether you believe it or not. In 1934, 148 nurses, doctors, and staff at Los Angeles County Hospital fell extremely ill. It was originally thought that this was a new form of polio, but had almost every symptom of something called chronic fatigue syndrome, which I can go over in a different video. They labeled it as muscle nerve disorder, and since then, more than 70 outbreaks have been recorded worldwide. all of which tended to disproportionately affect women. When doctors couldn't find a cause, they called it mass hysteria. And there are reasons for this. I think some of it is, in fact, sexism, because women are often believed on their symptoms, and men are often told to just man up about it. I mean, sexism affects everyone. And neither of which will ever really be able to treat a disease, psychological or not. In the 1950s, Elliot Slater, who was a psychologist, studied 85 patients who had been diagnosed with hysteria. Within 9 years, 12 of them were dead, and 30 were disabled. This leaves only 43 people alive and functioning completely. That's kind of sad. A lot of these patients, we found out, had undiagnosed conditions such as multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, or brain tumors. Had those 42 people not been swept under the rug and given mass hysteria, perhaps they could have been saved and lived long lives. In the 1980s, hysteria was removed from being a diagnosable disorder. Now, those exhibiting signs of so-called hysteria would be diagnosed with histrionic personality disorder, which is someone who has an overwhelming desire to be noticed and often behave dramatically, conversion disorder, nervous system or neurological symptoms that can't be explained by neurological or other medical conditions, but they are real, or somatic symptom disorder, an extreme focus on physical symptoms such as pain or fatigue that causes major emotional stress and problems functioning. All of these are real disorders. They're not hysteria or fake at all. And if you're struggling with them, I'm sorry. However, this is still kind of problematic as it still pushes a lot of people's problems away. Women are 2 to 10 times as likely as men to receive a conversion disorder diagnosis. A lot of times, those diagnosed with these disorders have an underlying cause the doctors can't find. And a lot of the disorders these cover up have devastating consequences. What I feel we need to do in the future is to focus on getting people the help they need and not being afraid to tell someone, I don't know what's wrong. And when that happens, we could open a lot of doors to help people. So, what are your thoughts on hysteria? Also, what are you doing for Halloween? Or Samhain, if you call it that. Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and sign in for my next video. Excited to see you there!